10 Mile Creek, downtown Silver Spring, and some of the tallest trees in Montgomery County. All that and the latest news coming up next on Montgomery Plans. Thanks for watching Montgomery Plans. I'm Michael Brown. We're here to bring you up to date on important land use issues facing those who live and work in Montgomery County. On today's show, we'll tour 10 Mile Creek near Clarksburg, look where things stand in downtown Silver Spring, and visit some of the county's champion trees. But first, let's go to the top news-making decisions of the Montgomery County Planning Board.
Welcome to Plans in the News. I'm Bridget Suiso. Montgomery County's current zoning code was last revised in 1977. Close to 5 years ago, planners began a comprehensive rewrite of the ordinance with the goal of simplifying this unwieldy, complex, and outdated code. After months of hearings, work sessions, and discussions, the County Council has approved a new zoning code that will shape growth here in Montgomery County for decades to come. Deputy Planning Director Rose Krasnow says the new code will make life easier for planners, residents, and developers alike.
Writing a new code, a simplified code, a code that has some graphics in it to help understand, a code that takes 120 plus zones and takes it down to 39 and consolidates all our uses and gets rid of the archaic uses, moves us in tune with the century that we're in.
We will have fewer zones. We've consolidated zones. We had zones in the current code that are never used. They never got mapped in the county. Those will be removed. And we've really consolidated uses. So we now, in the new draft, one of the best features is that we have one use table, one place for people to go to say what's allowed where within the county.
The new code encourages a county where residents can live without using their cars every day and may limit sprawl by designing communities where residential construction is allowed in commercial areas.
That is one area where we sort of made a substantive change, moving us into the future, recognizing the limits on housing stock within the county. This provides some modest addition to permit the inclusion of more residential units in places that are basically commercial in nature. Existing residential zones really aren't affected. If anything, the rules are clearer.
Rose Krasnow says she believes this new code is actually more protective of existing neighborhoods.
So for example, at site plan, we never used to have to find master plan conformity. Now we must find master plan conformity. When we were applying the map, there's often a difference between the height that a master plan calls for and the height that a zone calls for. Council directed us to map everything the master plan height, considerably lower than the heights that were allowed in the zone. And we also have required that for projects that are right next to residential neighborhoods, that they have to set back their building. We actually put this into the law.
The new code will officially go into effect on October 30th. In the meantime, planners are working on a new zoning map that's necessary to implement the code. Staff is encouraging the public to weigh in during this process.
Property owners can still get involved by contacting us. They can come in. We have open office hours at the planning department. We'll be holding multiple open houses across the county. Have people look at the proposed mapping and chat with us about it.
Moving into other news, the process to rezone approximately 14 acres of land in Aspen Hill is officially underway. The lots are located west of the intersection of Connecticut Avenue and Aspen Hill Road and include the Vitro BAE office building, which has stood empty since 2010.
What we'll be looking at doing is staff has been collecting a lot of data in the area, looking at sort of the surrounding context, transportation, surrounding land uses, talking with different members in the community to start to formulate some preliminary recommendations of how this site could possibly be redeveloped.
This minor master plan amendment will also address the changing dynamics in this area. Planners are looking at this site like it's a blank slate, with the goal of finding the most feasible and appropriate zoning for the location moving forward.
The 1994 plan is very specific that they want to see an office employment center use, which made sense when Vitro was there. It was a large complex and had been around in the area for a long time. But overall, the office dynamic in the county has changed. And so now we need to look at, is office appropriate here? A lot of people are telling us it's not. The market numbers show that it's probably not. So some of the things that we're looking at is, different types of retail. Retail at what scale? We haven't really determined that yet.
Staff is hoping to bring a draft of the amendment to the Planning Board in June. Now for an update on the latest news with the Countywide Transit Corridors Functional Master Plan.
Hybrid. This is approximately 102 mile network of transit corridors. It includes the 10 corridors that we covered originally in the study, as well as the Carter Cities Transitway, which was already in the master plan. The Carter Cities Transitway, it's all set as far as what the alignment is and that it will be bus rapid transit. The other corridors, we set aside rights of way in the master plan so that those studies could move forward, and that we would be sure that we would be able to accommodate it in the public right of way. There are two project planning studies going on right now, one for Beers Mill Road and one for Georgia Avenue Busway. There's also some money in the CIP for about $600,000 that was used last year to start planning on US 29 and 355. And the state now is kicking in $10 million to continue those studies over the next 2 years. That the fact that the state is contributing the money is significant because most of the corridors, most of the transit corridors are on state highways. So we absolutely need state highway as a partner in those studies. The Transit Corridors Plan is important for three basic reasons. Number one is that it pulls in, some of these corridors were already in the master plan, but it pulls them into a cohesive network that everyone can understand how it works. It's not just a couple of different facilities. The corridors that we put into the Transit Corridors Plan are pretty much right within the areas of development that 50 years ago that said that's where we should be putting our major development. Second, it sets aside rights of way for those corridors that were not in the master plan. And I think what's important is that the council passed this master plan unanimously.
In favor of approval? All in favor?
And I think that was important just as a statement of policy because it puts transit at the forefront of where we think we're going in the future. You can plan to have transit on into the future, but until it's actually developed, it's very difficult to provide the service that's needed because it's very expensive. Once it is developed, it's easier to serve. Now we are developed, now's the time to do BRT.
Coming up next on Around Town, we're in Clarksburg. The snow has melted. The sun is making an appearance. I got my boots on. I'm going to be taking a tour with planners, and we're talking about the future of this up-county community. We're here at the 10 Mile Creek itself, the real 10 Mile Creek, and we're talking about the 10 Mile Creek limited amendment that the council's been working on. Give us some history here.
In 1994, the council adopted a plan for this area along with the rest of Clarksburg, but they withheld this area to the latest stage because they wanted to make sure that environmental protections were in place and the land use was planned such that it would continue to protect this very high quality stream. It supports a very sensitive range of species in this creek, and it is also a reference stream for Montgomery County. So the 1994 plan really looked at ways to protect it and asked the council to revisit the plan at such time development was coming forward here. So that's what the council did.
The scientific studies that were conducted on this creek, talk a little bit about what they found and how the development here might impact this creek.
One of the things that really came forward was the less land that we can disturb, the more we can keep in its natural state, the better. So that we want to cluster and keep development away from the stream buffers, retain the forest, keep all that intact in order to protect this stream.
So in conducting all of these studies, though, we were keeping in mind that we weren't looking at stopping development here in Clarksburg. We just wanted to find a balance.
Exactly. One of the things the council wanted to do was select an appropriate amount of density that would still protect the stream, but also provide homes for people in Clarksburg to support the town center, to support the overall plan for Clarksburg.
Now talk a little bit about how this water will be continually monitored, even as we build out in future years. Is this something that's in the works as well?
Absolutely. This is a special protection area now. It's been monitored continuously since 1994 and will continue to be monitored by the county in order to assure that any development that comes forward here continues to protect the streams.
So tell us how the water here in 10 Mile Creek affects the drinking water of Montgomery County residents.
Well, 10 Mile Creek flows into Little Seneca Lake. Little Seneca Lake is an emergency supplemental water supply. What it does is in times of drought, they release water from Little Seneca Lake. It flows into Seneca Creek and into the Potomac River. Eventually, water from the Potomac River is taken in for our water supply, but mainly it's used in times of drought to raise the level of the Potomac River for a short period of time so that our water supply is continuous.
There was a lot of thought and a lot of work that went into this to make sure that we were going to keep Clarksburg a balanced, developed community.
Yes, and I think now we can go visit some of the sites where we're looking for development to occur, but in a way that does protect the stream. And I think you should talk to Val about those locations.
Okay, let's go.
Val, thanks for joining us on this tour today. We're now walking out here onto the Miles Coppola property. Tell us a little bit about what's planned for this site here.
Well, the Miles Coppola property is about 100 acres in size, is envisioned for residential land uses. Again, the notion of trying to help support the town center area. And the council's plan has built in flexibility in the types of residential units that could occur here. It could be single-family detached homes, townhouses, multifamily units. It'll really be dependent upon the market and the developer that obviously is going to be responsible for its construction. So the plan does provide for that flexibility.
And there's also a transportation aspect to this plan, a bypass. Tell us about that.
Well, the bypass is the future route for potential transit serving the Clarksburg planning area. And the transit will skirt where we're standing right here, pass through the Miles Coppola property and go to the north and eventually connect up back with 355. And it's envisioned to keep traffic out of the historic district.
Thanks for that update, Val. And now I think it's time to go over to the town center site and find out what's new over there.
Sounds good. This was always envisioned as a mixed-use town center scale area that included retail, cultural uses, really the heart of Clarksburg.
So when you were looking at this limited amendment, you needed to make sure that the balance was there to continue to support what was originally planned.
The way that was finally accomplished, I think, through the master plan was looking at different options for especially the Miles Coppola property. Council concluded that rather than looking at a commercially focused mixed-use area for that property, the shift ought to be to a residential focus. That would allow additional homes to support the town center area, but also there's an opportunity for some level of mixed-use development that could include commercial opportunities. Ultimately, it'll be left to the property owner to figure out how best to accomplish that, because the plan really provides flexibility.
So we really are staying true to the original vision of this town center being the heart of Clarksburg when we went through all of this planning.
Yes, we are. In fact, we looked at the 10 Mile Creek planning area and determined and attempted to determine how best the 10 Mile Creek development could in fact support the town center area. And the conclusion I think that the council chose was that additional homes, additional residences, especially on the Miles Coppola property, would be the best way to help support the vitality of the town center.
Okay, Val, great information. Thanks so much for taking time out to talk to us today. That wraps up this segment of Around Town. I'm Susan Kennedy. Maybe we'll be in your neck of the woods next time.
It's been a little over 10 years since redevelopment in downtown Silver Spring began. In that relatively short time, a new downtown has begun to emerge. It is now a place that draws people from all over the county for work and recreation. Successful shops, restaurants, and entertainment options have replaced empty storefronts, vacant parking lots, and decaying buildings. Here's Bridget Suiso with more.
Situated along two major arteries and well served by transit, downtown Silver Spring is successfully transforming into a complete city. To take stock of where things stand, I met up with planner Robert Cronenberg, who took us on a tour. So Robert, we're here in downtown Silver Spring, an area that's seen a ton of change over the years.
Right.
And we're excited to get a little bit of history from you and an update on some of the development projects.
Okay, sounds good.
Great, thanks.
Right.
We're standing on the site of the original downtown Silver Spring shopping center. I know it dates back to the 30s.
Right. What you see behind us is really an adaptive reuse of the shopping center that was here, both from the facade and then what you see as the front. And this really resembles a lot of what the images showed back in the 30s.
I know looking back at some of the old historical photos, it seemed like a bustling shopping center at all times.
Right.
The original Silver Spring Shopping Center was built in 1938. It was the first such center to offer free off-street parking, making it easy for patrons to access everything in one trip.
The shopping center included retail, drugstore, grocery that was anchored by the Silver Theater along Colesville Road to the north.
The success of this center drew more retail development to downtown Silver Spring. The Heck Company located its first suburban store here. And for about 20 years, downtown Silver Spring was a vibrant commercial destination until 1960, when Wheaton Mall opened its doors.
You started seeing a lot of push and a lot of movement towards Wheaton, and so that really changed, I think, the focus of how Silver Spring was had really started developing in the 30s.
As shopping patterns favored Wheaton, downtown Silver Spring began to decline. By the early 1980s, the shopping center was nearly vacant, and the once tremendously popular Silver Theater had closed. Then for 10 years, downtown Silver Spring languished. Fortunately, the tide began to turn, and in 2000, a new master plan helped transform Silver Spring into what we see today. So Robert, can you tell us a little bit about what kickstarted the redevelopment here?
Sure, it was probably a combination of a number of things. So in the 90s, there was proposals for the downtown Silver Spring, like the Mega Mall, that really, I think, kind of kick-started people's ideas about what they maybe don't want in Silver Spring and helped form a vision of what we do want. There's many different communities from all over the surrounding areas of Silver Spring that weighed in on what they want to see Silver Spring transform into. And so the county stepped in, and the plan was adopted in 2000 that really set out that vision for what we see today.
Well, let's go take a look at some of the features and see, you can point out some of the elements of the plan.
Sure, that'd be great. Okay.
The redevelopment of downtown Silver Spring relied on both private and public dollars. The county funded the restoration and expansion of the historic Silver Theater, and in April of 2003, it reopened as the AFI Silver Theater.
Welcome to downtown Silver Spring. And let's see if this works here. Here we go.
With that, it instantly resumed its significance as an entertainment centerpiece for this downtown. Today, the build-out around the theater is complete. Directly behind it is one of the most popular public meeting spots around.
What you see here is really just a showcase of what public use space should be for a community. And it also showcases the arts and entertainment piece of downtown Silver Spring. It's one of the best public use spaces in the region, mainly because we have a variety of different activities that go on throughout the year. In the summertime, you have the outdoor venues for music. You have stage set up here where people can listen to the music, they can participate. We have a lot of activity with the water fountain that goes up, a lot of children that play in it when the weather warms up. And we also have the markets that are year-round that really line Ellsworth Drive and really play a major role for the people and the residents around here.
Well, I know that this is just one part of the downtown Silver Spring plan, but it's a lot larger than where we are right now.
That's true. We have the downtown core area, which is typically highlighted by where we are right now, is is really framed by 4 major streets. You have Cedar to the north, Wayne Avenue to the east, and Colesville Road and Georgia Avenue to the south and the west. This is one of the most traditional areas that people think of when downtown Silver Spring is brought up, but there's more to it. So Bridget, let's go down to the Civic Building, which is really one of the anchors in downtown Silver Spring.
Okay. As we walked, Robert described the other districts that make up downtown Silver Spring. There's Fenton Village, which runs along Fenton Street between Wayne and East-West Highway. Ripley is located near the new fire station between the train tracks and George Avenue. And South Silver Spring is just southwest of the tracks. Each is seeing, or will soon see, redevelopment projects coming in. Continuing our tour, I asked about the significance of the Civic Building.
Well, the Civic Building is a wonderful gesture for a downtown because it really is a community gathering area. It's a public building. And the plaza is something that really frames in, from an urban context standpoint, frames in both the Civic Building and the public amenities that are here as well, both the skating rink and the public art that was part of the amenity package for the downtown redevelopment.
Public investments can be seen all around downtown. We already mentioned the AFI Silver Theater. Add to that the Fillmore, public art, and a brand new bike share station.
The bike share is just a wonderful opportunity for not only from a recreational standpoint, but also from a commuting standpoint. We have one of the best bicycling communities within the region here in Silver Spring, and the Capital Bike Share just adds another link for that. It's a wonderful opportunity.
Do you think this downtown area has developed the way you thought it would?
Yes, actually I think better than what we thought it would. It's become a destination place for people. People come here as a destination from around different parts of the county. From my perspective, it's definitely a success story.
What do we have right here?
Well, this is what's under construction is the Silver Spring Regional Library, and it hosts not only the library but other services that the county offers, and just is one of the new developments that's coming into the Fenton Village. Next to that, what we'll see is the residential piece of the library. Also, we will see a number of new redevelopments in the Fenton district.
All of these projects that are happening they're basing all of the design and the zoning and everything on the 2000 plan?
They are, but what we're also seeing, what is new as part of many of the designs is the fact that we do have a purple line now that is coming through, and it is coming through the base of the library site, so it hooks up with the transit center and follows Bonifant and goes through the base of the library down Wayne Avenue. To have the train come through a building, I think puts us on a different map. You know, it's something that is probably one of the coolest things to have in terms of a design that I think will be a key feature in downtown Silver Spring.
All this has happened since the approval of the master plan in 2000, and more is yet to come. Construction of the Purple Line is slated to commence in 2015. The Blairs, a 30-acre transit-oriented community, will be phased in over 20 years in South Silver Spring. And a plan for Phase 3 of United Therapeutics campus along Spring Street was recently approved for future development. We ended our tour at Georgia and Wayne Avenues in front of a company that was ahead of the curve here in downtown Silver Spring. Robert, we're here with Discovery Communications in the background.
Right.
That was a big deal, them moving to Silver Spring.
Yes, it was, and it's definitely one of the anchors in downtown Silver Spring. It started right about their construction started right about the same time that the downtown redevelopment kick-started as well. And I think it really showcases what Silver Spring has become and just the success that we have in terms of business and retail, and also the new residential that we have in the downtown, which was not as prevalent before. We can focus on the adaptive reuse of a lot of the buildings. You know, the shopping center where the downtown Silver Spring revitalization has started, but also Canada Dry building, which is in the Ripley South Silver Spring district, and also the dry cleaner site, which is right across from Montgomery College. When you blend all of these different types of uses together, both public and private, it really makes for an exciting downtown.
To learn more about the projects slated for downtown Silver Spring, visit our website at montgomeryplanning.org. There you can access the master plan as well as find updates on all the projects being considered by the Planning Board.
Did you know that Montgomery County is home to quite a few trees that measure the largest of their species? In fact, there are both county and state champion trees within our borders. Twice a year, Brookside Gardens offers a tour to visit a selection of this county's champion trees. Last fall, our cameras went along.
Well, today we're doing our annual Champion Tree Tour. Trees become champions by being nominated by the owner of the property or by just someone who comes on the property and notices it's a really big tree. The board comes and measures the tree, and then they determine who the champions are.
People are always amazed at the number of big trees there are. We've got the most state champion trees, and we've got 4 national champion trees in our county. And the first one we're going to look at is a new county champion. It's a white mulberry.
This tree is from China. We brought them here because of the silkworm industry. We thought that we could have a thriving silkworm industry in the South.
This was the original Osage orange tree. People always ask, what are these good for? And I'm going to show you.
Oh, get out of his way. This is a Norway spruce. This is probably one of the most common landscaping trees around old homes. You've seen these cones, which are purple when they're young.
Now get on and off the vans as quick as you can. The faster you do it, the more trees we get to see. All right. This is Nick Weber, and he's the proud owner of a national champion tree. Right behind me is a Kentucky coffee tree.
This is a magnificent tree, and we're really lucky that we have Nick here because he loves this tree. He takes care of this tree. It's a great landscaping tree. It takes all kinds of conditions. I know this is going to be the tree with the biggest leaf you see all day.
And he has an uncrowned champion here too.
This is a northern tree. The large tree, Larix laricina. This tree has been around probably for 150 million years. It's one of the oldest trees.
Not this one.
Not this.
The only time we heard about big trees is when they were going to cut them down to widen a road or put in a housing development. We thought if we brought some notoriety to them to begin with, we would have a better chance of saving them. And that was the motivation for doing this. Okay, let's move it, you people there at the end.
The bark on a persimmon, very blocky, alligator-like bark. I use this tree a lot in my reforestation in our county parks. And the reason is, can you believe it? The deer aren't eating it.
We're going down here just a little bit farther. I think I got one of the most prolific sweet gums in the country.
It's called sweet gum for a reason. I'm going to pass this around. The fall color on this plant is fantastic. Red-orange color.
All right, now as you come by and pay your respects to this tree, we're going down here just a little bit farther. This is one of my favorite trees in Montgomery County. A European linden. This tree has like got character. Look at those burls and all on it. I mean, it just invites you to climb it.
The superlatives in different categories are things that attract attention. So I just think people really like seeing the biggest and the best.
Sure. 3, 2, 1, trees! Crazy. That's it.
Visit our website at montgomeryplanning.org for complete, up-to-date planning information in Montgomery County. There, you'll find ways to access the Planning Department's many services. Well, that does it for this edition of Montgomery Plans. Join us again next time when we bring you more on the issues that affect quality of life here in Montgomery County. I'm Michael Brown. Thanks for watching.